Hi, I'm Ryan from the Technical Support Training team, and today I'll be walking you through the fundamentals of cryptography. We'll be discussing the essential building blocks to help give you a strong foundation on how and when cryptography is used day to day. We'll discuss the following: what is cryptography, the types of cryptography methods, public key infrastructure, and finally, TLS protocol encryption. Cryptography is a theory and method of securing communications between two parties. It's often presented with four main goals as seen here. These terms will come up frequently throughout this video, so let's look at what each entails. First off is confidentiality. This ensures only the authorized entity can view the information or data. In the event someone obtains your data in transit, the information will be illegible. Any sensitive materials will not be accessible provided a strong algorithm is used. Next on the list is data integrity, which ensures information or data is received without manipulation. This means data exists in its original form, providing assurances that the details are accurate and complete. On the other hand is authentication, which is the process of ensuring a user, computer, or device proves their identity and is who they say they are. Finally, non-repudiation is the concept in which an author or recipient cannot dispute the legitimacy of the data origin. Undeniable evidence is given to prove data authenticity. Before we explain the different cryptography methods, let's discuss the basic concept of encryption. All encryption methods convert plain text, which is the message or data that needs to be kept safe, into ciphertext, which is the unreadable data. This is done by using a cipher, which is an algorithm or a collection of mathematical formulas. Ciphertext is what's transmitted to the recipient and needs to be robust enough that even if someone copies it, they can't decode it back into the plain text. Only the intended recipient can do so. Another term we'll define is work factor. This refers to the average resources and time required to break an algorithm or crypto system. The goals of cryptography are accomplished through various methods and techniques. You can use symmetric cryptography, asymmetric cryptography, hash functions, or hybrid cryptography, which is a combination of those three. Symmetric cryptography is used for bulk encryption of large data sets. This allows entire messages to be safely and quickly encrypted for transmission. It uses what is often known as a shared key or a secret key to encrypt and decrypt this data. This means that the same key is used for both the sender and the receiver. The key advantage to symmetric cryptography is its speed. For example, let's say user 1 wishes to communicate a private message to user 2. For both to read this data, they first need a secure way to decide on a secret key. Once decided, user 1 generates a message and encrypts it using the key and chosen cipher. The message can now be safely sent. Since user 2 is the only other person with the secret key, upon receipt, they can decrypt and read the message. What makes symmetric cryptography quick is its key length, which generally ranges from 128 to 256-bit long keys for AES. A key's length determines its complexity. A shorter key is faster to process but is inherently less complex, whereas a larger key has a longer sequence of random bits, which in turn makes it harder to attack by brute force. The trade-off is that it takes longer to process. Since a binary digit has two possible values, a 128-bit key gives 2 to the power of 128 combinations, which is only about 340 trillion possibilities. The most common ciphers used today with high work factors are AES, IDEA, and Triple DES. For example, BitLocker operates by entering a password to access a key stored on the TPM to decrypt a drive upon startup. If the drive is stolen or lost, the data will be unreadable unless the user has the password to access that secure key. Symmetric cryptography does, however, come with its disadvantages. The main problem is finding a secure way to exchange a secret key, one that prevents an adversary from obtaining a copy. If someone malicious obtains the secret key, they can read all the sensitive information without the two parties ever knowing. Next up is asymmetric cryptography, which aims to provide confidentiality, authentication, and non-repudiation. It does this by using a pair of keys that are mathematically linked. One key is the public key, which is freely available to anyone upon request. The other is the private key. This is kept secure and is only accessible to the person or computer it belongs to. The private key is normally password protected or stored on a smart card or token, which is protected with a PIN code. Messages encrypted with one key can only be decrypted by its counterpart. So if you encrypt data with someone's public key, only their private key can decrypt it. This makes sure only they can access it. If someone encrypts something with their private key, then only their public key can decrypt it. Since only they have access to their private key, if a ciphertext can be decrypted by their public key, you can validate that they sent it. This is used for cryptographic signatures. Asymmetric cryptography uses larger key lengths, so it's not fit for bulk processing. Keys typically range from 2048 to 4096 bits for RSA. These need to be longer as the two keys are mathematically related, and one of those keys is publicly available. Some of the most common ciphers used today are RSA, DH or Diffie-Hellman, and ECC. We'll explain this further with an example to show how the keys are used to provide confidentiality. User 1 wants to securely send a message to user 2. First, they obtain user 2's public key, encrypt the message with this public key, then send the message. No one else can decrypt this without the matching private key pair. When user 2 receives the message, they use the securely stored password-protected private key to decrypt it. Now both user 1 and user 2 have the same message. This solution addresses the key exchange hurdle with symmetric cryptography. The reverse process can also be used to provide authentication and non-repudiation. For example, user 2 wants to prove that they are the sender of a message. They encrypt a message with their private key. User 2 sends the encrypted message to user 1. When user 1 gets the message, they decrypt it with user 2's public key. Now this isn't entirely foolproof, as one of the weaknesses is proving public key ownership, meaning man-in-the-middle attacks are possible. This is where digital certificates and hybrid methods come in, and we'll discuss this later. Primary advantage of asymmetric cryptography is its scalability and its ability to provide a method for secure key distribution. It's one of the main methods used to establish a secure HTTPS connection. On the other hand, its main disadvantage is its slow speed. With long, complex computations, more resource-intensive processing is required. Therefore, it is not suitable for bulk data as mentioned before. A hash function is the method of equating data into a fixed-length string. This is used to validate data such as software, emails, and anywhere integrity is vital. The process itself is also sometimes referred to as hashing. A change to a message could occur intentionally because an adversary altered it for malicious purposes, or unintentionally if the message is incompletely downloaded, for example. Either could be disastrous. The output of a hash is a fixed-length string which proves a file is genuine and unchanged. It's known variously as a hash, thumbprint, fingerprint, or message digest. The most common ciphers are SHA, MD5 or MD6, and CRC32. Let's say we have an email that is sent out. We see that the hash of an email is a specific length string. No matter how large the text is, it will always be the same size. These hashing functions produce the same result each time a specific input is used. However, a slight difference between inputs will produce very different outputs. This means that even if a single character is changed in the message, the hash won't match. It is possible that two messages will produce the same hash output from a function. This is a hash collision. Since the input parameters are so sensitive and the output can't be anticipated based on any specific change to the input, it's very difficult to create a hash collision intentionally. However, there's a small chance a collision could happen by accident. Hashing only works in one direction, so mail clients can use this to verify the integrity of a message. To reiterate, you can't reverse out of the hash function and produce the original message from the hash. Remember, this won't tell you what has changed, but it will tell you that the data has been altered. Another everyday use of hashes is to validate the integrity of a downloaded file, verifying the file is genuine and unchanged. Give this a try the next time you see a hash next to a file download. The main advantage of hashing is that it is relatively simple to compute, which means the process is extremely fast. However, this method does not provide authentication, meaning it's vulnerable to a man-in-the-middle attack, and there is a possibility of collisions. Authentication is provided by the signature processes, which we'll touch on later. Now, beginning our discussion of hybrid cryptography, let's quickly summarize our three previous methods. We first have symmetric cryptography, which provides very fast encryption. However, it requires another method for key distribution, making scalability a challenge. Asymmetric cryptography provides confidentiality, authentication, and non-repudiation. However, it is slow and unsuitable for bulk data. Then, finally, hash functions, which only provides fast data integrity, but is weak to potential collisions. Using hashing alone also provides no form of authentication. If used solely on their own, each method comes with its disadvantages. This is where hybrid methods shine. By using all three methods together, they capitalize on the advantages and address the inherent disadvantages of each. To break down two concepts in action, we'll first demonstrate a hybrid technique used for secure symmetric key distribution. User 1 wants to securely communicate with User 2 using symmetric keys. Symmetric keys are quick to use, but it's difficult to securely distribute the secret key to both parties. To overcome this, asymmetric cryptography will be used in conjunction. Let's take a closer look. As we've seen before, User 1 will generate a random secret key and encrypt it using User 2's public key. Next, the encrypted secret key is sent to User 2. User 2 then uses the matching private key to decrypt the encrypted secret key. Now both User 1 and User 2 have copies of the same secret key and can use it for symmetric encryption and decryption of bulk data. Lastly, we've already seen how a hash function can provide integrity and that a private key allows authentication. We'll show you how combining the two into a digital signature can also provide non-repudiation. First, User 1 creates a message and generates a hash of the message. They encrypt the hash using their private key to provide proof of origin. This is called signing a message. Next, the plaintext message and the encrypted hash, otherwise known as the digital signature, are sent to User 2. User 2 uses the same hash function to create a hash of the plain text message they received. Then, User 2 decrypts the digital signature sent by the User 1's public key. The two hashes are compared. If they match, User 2 knows the message was sent by User 1 and nothing has been changed, meaning User 2 can authenticate the sender. Now, let's take a look at all these concepts and see how they are used in today's world. Whenever you open a web browser, you probably notice a little padlock next to the URL. This indicates that the site is trusted, but how do these trusts come about? Let's first look into certificates before we dive into certificate trusts and public key infrastructure, or PKI for short. A digital certificate is an electronic document that identifies individuals, remote computers, such as web servers, and organizations. It also binds this identity to a public key, which can be used to provide cryptographic services. The entities that issue digital certificates are known as certificate authorities or CAs. Certificates often come from well-known public CAs, which most operating systems and browsers trust out of the box. We'll discuss these again later on. Let's look at an example. This certificate has been issued to identify a remote computer, specifically a computer or web server with the name of www.sophos.com. It was issued by an organization called Let's Encrypt. The certificate is valid between the dates listed. A common use of digital certificates is to provide a secure connection to a website using HTTPS. The certificate is an example of this and supports authentication for www.sophos.com and the client computers connecting to it. Digital certificates are highly versatile and can be used for a wide variety of other tasks. Keep in mind, you can export certificates to view all the details at once in your native OS certificate viewer, as we're about to see. Looking at another example, this time with our OS certificate viewer, this one is used to protect email messages. We see that there is a gold seal, which indicates the certificate is valid. Like before, we can also see who it's issued to, issued by, and the dates it's valid between. Apart from protecting emails, certificates can also be used to support disk encryption by protecting keys, verifying software sources, and for general personal certificates. Let's take a look at an X509 digital certificate for Sophos.com. It contains numerous fields, some of the most important being version, the version of X509 standard the certificate conforms to, serial number, the certificate issuer assigns each one a unique serial number, issuer, the certificate authority who signed the certificate, valid dates, used for expiry, and subject, the name of the entity bound to the public key contained in the certificate. Next, we can follow the certificate creation process. This provides a way for clients and browsers to build a chain of trust with whom they are connected to. First, create a CSR or certificate signing request. At this stage, a private key is also created that is mathematically linked to your CSR or certificate. As a reminder, private keys are never shared. Next, submit the CSR to a trusted third party or certificate authority. The CA then provides a certificate and populates the data based on the info provided in your CSR. It can also be seen as your public key. Now let's revisit step 2, where a CSR is submitted to a trusted third party or CA. CAs are entities that issue digital certificates. They act as a trusted third party for the subject that owns the certificate and any third-party clients. This means we don't have to explicitly trust the certificate itself because the CA guarantees its legitimacy and integrity. Some of the most common are Comodo, DigiCert, GloboSign, and Let's Encrypt. The verification process for requesters will vary for each CA. They could be very strict, requiring the individual requesting the certificate to prove their identity, or they might simply need proof of domain ownership. This is why most of these CAs provide certificates for a fee. Another type of certificate authority is an enterprise or private CA. These are used by companies for resources usually inside their organization. It's generally inexpensive as each certificate does not come with a fee, and certificates are managed by their organization. The private enterprise CA just needs to be deployed to all internal devices before these certificates can be inherently trusted. In the real world, a certificate authority can be included in multiple levels of a hierarchical infrastructure. This is called a certificate chain or chain of trust. Each part of the chain is signed by the level above it, and each level must be valid for the whole chain to be valid. Here, the certificate of the end entity is issued by an intermediate CA called GloboSign Extended Validation CA, which in turn was issued by a root CA called GloboSign. The CA hierarchy's top level is known as the root CA. This has its own certificate and associated private key. Typically, the root CA's only function is to issue certificates to one or more intermediate CAs. Each intermediate CA has the key usage properties in its certificate configured to allow the issuing and signing of certificates. For example, a web browser initiates a secure connection to a web server using HTTPS. The web server possesses a digital certificate that was signed by the intermediate CA. The browser must determine whether to establish the secure connection. This is where the chain of trust, which is sent to the browser as part of the connection setup, provides the answer. The root CA's digital certificate is held in the browser's trust store, meaning there's explicit trust between the browser and the root CA. The root CA's certificate signs the certificate issued to the subordinate CA, and so there's explicit trust between them. Subsequently, the web server certificate is issued by the subordinate CA, meaning there's also explicit trust between them. When the browser downloads the web server's certificate, assuming the certificate is valid, it can be chained back to the trusted root. Implicit trust can be given to the web server. Since it has a digital signature, this proves the CA vouched for the information and origin of the certificate. So, the next time you're reviewing a certificate, you now know where it came from and the process it had to follow. For more detailed guidelines on how to generate a certificate signing request, please see our resources linked in the description. Lastly, I'll go over the Transport Layer Security Protocol, or TLS for short. This is the successor to SSL and works in a similar way, using encryption to protect the transfer of data and information. These terms are sometimes used interchangeably. There are currently 4 versions of TLS: 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, and 1.3. Due to vulnerabilities, TLS 1.0 and 1.1 are deprecated and no longer supported on most devices. The primary goals are to protect data over an unsecure network without any prior configuration. It utilizes many of the cryptographic mechanisms we discussed earlier in the video and provides authentication, integrity, and confidentiality. It works between the TCP transport layer and application layer, for example HTTP, to secure a communication channel. This approach means that the higher application layer protocols such as HTTP, SMTP, LDAP, and SIP all remain unchanged. At a high level, TLS sessions begin with a TCP three-way handshake. Followed by the TLS handshake. The client starts the session, and the server provides the client with a digital certificate. The client verifies it trusts the certificate if the root CA is trusted in its certificate store. Both sides agree on the cipher suites and a random number or secret key is generated. After that, the TLS session is established, followed by the rest of the application layer sequence, such as an HTTP GET request, which is now fully encrypted. Here's an example on how this protects us. Let's say a browser or application reaches out to a website. A certificate is presented to the browser. The browser validates if it trusts the certificate authority or root CA. It does this by looking at the certificate store, which comes from the operating system or application. Looking at the same Sophos.com certificate from earlier on, we can see the certificate chain, including the intermediate and root CA, which in this case is ISRG. This is trusted because it is included in our certificate store. If we navigate to the store in our browser's security settings, we'll also see ISRG in the Trusted Root Certification Authorities tab. In contrast, if you open a website and are presented with a certificate originating from a root CA not in our trust store, we get a security warning instead. Only certificates from trusted root CAs will allow the request to be made without warning and give the trusted padlock symbol. Another use case or validation check is something called certificate pinning. This is when an application, for example Sophos Endpoint Protection, makes a request to a server. During the TLS negotiation, the Sophos Endpoint software validates that the certificate issuer or CA is the one expected. A common problem occurs when something in the environment, a firewall for example, performs TLS or web filtering, which needs to decrypt and scan data. This typically is done by intercepting the TLS request and generating a new certificate to present to the client. This new certificate is not coming from the expected CA, so when it's presented to the software, it gets rejected even if the CA was imported on the client device to the Trusted Root Certificate Store. This is referred to as certificate pinning, and only specific certificates are considered valid. These are just a couple examples, so be aware that warnings can occur for other reasons such as revoked certificates, expired, or mismatching names. So that covers our overview of cryptography. I hope you found this video useful. Let us know by giving us a thumbs up on TechVids. Check out the resources for this video in the description. For further assistance, view and post questions on community.sophos.com and go to techvids.sophos.com for more great videos like this one. Thanks for watching.